And I'm back. How y'all doing and shit like that? Hope you guys enjoyed my Ghost Says Soup review and stuff like that. Um yeah, and back to the hip hop of things. The album I'm about to review today is Tribe's fourth studio album, Beats, Rhymes, and Life, released in 1996 on Jive Records. Producers include the Umna, more on that later, and Rashad Smith. Um, Rashad Smith, you guys should know he produced for a lot of cats back in the 90s and shit like that. Cats like Craig Mack, Das Effects, Biggie, of course, MC Light, Busta Rhymes. I think he was best known for producing, cause he produced Wu Ha by Busta and shit. So yeah. All right. So I reviewed People's Instinctive Travels and Path, Low in Theory, Midnight Marauders. So there's a lot to talk about with this album. So after Midnight Marauders, they kind of took a little, well, they kind of did solo stuff. They did some solo stuff and everything like that. Like Q-Tip, he started producing for cats like Mobb Deep, Nas, and also around that time he had converted to Islam around that time too. Five, he did a few guest appearances here and there and shit like that. He got married around '94 and he relocated to ATL. More on that later too. And Ali Shaheed Muhammad, he was producing for a lot of cats, but best known he produced D'Angelo's Brown Sugar, released in 1995. Classic album, by the way, one of the best R&B neo soul albums of all time. Not just neo soul, one of the greatest albums of all time. I'm just gonna leave it at that. And so, fast forward to 1995, they submitted the song "Glamour and Glitz" on the show soundtrack. The show was um, a documentary like had cats like Biggie, Onyx, Wu Tang, Slick Rick, and shit. And so while he was on tour, he got introduced by one of his friends named Amp Fiddler by this cat named J.D., who you guys know as J.Dilla, but he went by J.D. at that time. And so they were vibing, talking about music, and Tip loved his beats and stuff like that. Just the way he combined his samples and shit together. So him, JD, and Ali Shaheed Muhammad, they formed this production supergroup called the Umna, which is Arabic for Muslim community. And they produce this album and the next album, Left Movement, is coming soon. But then this is where the problem hits. So since Five Dog moves to Atlanta and shit like that, every time like he will come to the studio. Well, before I get to that, here's one more thing. This album is kind of interesting because if it features Q-Tip's cousin Consequence, and you guys should know who Consequence is. He's known for his affiliation with Kanye West. He's known for his beef with Pusha T. Yeah. So he was in a couple of tracks. So, and this is where really the problem hits. Like according to Five Dog, it was around that time that he started losing interest in the group because the thing that was so special about the first three tracks. Well, I would say like when I say the first three, a huge emphasis on Low End Theory and Midnight Marauders was like the chemistry between Tip and Five. But you see, Five he was in the album, but not as heavily as you would think because sometimes like he would come to the studio a little late, and by that time they would already finish the song, or they would basically not in the studio and shit like that because he's coming from Atlanta and they record his album um in New York City and shit like that. So to think about the flight time and all that shit, so that's really what happened. And also yeah, I'm gonna save a lot of my thoughts off this album. And also, like, this album was released at the time of the East Coast West Coast beef, and it's kind of crazy because although they weren't really like heavily hit, like heavily involved in that beef, like Q-Tip somehow got dragged into it because, well, of course, you guys should know that 2 years prior, during the Source Wars, Tupac like bum rushed their performance and performed the song "Out on Bail" and stuff like that. But at that time, I mentioned this at the Bow Down review that he got into with Ice Cube because it's kind of, I don't really know exactly how the beef started. I heard a couple of reasons why it happened. One reason was Q-Tip said some stuff about the West Coast, did an interview, and Dub C heard it. Another reason was like he was on a mixtape and he said some shit. Like it was like a lot of conflicting stories. And if you guys know the reason why they beef, let me know in the comment section and shit. But other than that, okay. The album, was nominated for Best Rap Album in '95, and the singles I forgot. Once again, it's Stressed Out are the singles. Stressed Out featuring Faith Evans, and once again featuring Tammy Lucas. And so basically, what ended up happening was once again got nominated for Best Rap Performance and shit like that. Kind of crazy and shit like that because I mean it's not crazy, but at the same time, you would think with albums like Midnight Marauders or Low End Theory, it will either get like Grammy nod or something, but the Grammys, they don't know shit about hip hop sometimes. Not saying that Beats, Rhymes, and Life don't deserve the nominations and shit like that, but it was just kind of surprising when I read that and shit, but it is what it is. 15 songs. You guys should know what I'm about to do. Track number 1, Phony Rappers. Oh, another thing I want to mention about this album. I forgot, I'm sorry. This album is like a lot more darker. Well, it's probably like the most darkest in the discography and shit like that. Due to like more of like the production, the content of the songs, which I'm gonna get into in a minute. I'm just want to let y'all know right now. Track number 1, Phony Rappers. And oh damn, I'm tripping. I'm sorry I keep doing this, but yeah. This is the cover of the album. And they use their famous logo and shit like that. I love this album cover so much. It has like that very abstractual nighttime vibe to it. And then of course, you have the members right here. And what's interesting about this album is like, how back in the day people used to do this, like you could order like a jersey, an album cover t-shirt. I miss when certain artists used to do that sometimes because it just shows you it's like a thank you for supporting us and stuff like that, These days artists don't do that shit. It's like now everything's like money, 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 money. But okay. Now to the songs. Track number 1, Phony Rappers. Ill song right there. That is a very good way to start off the album and shit like that. Like Tip's verse, that first verse is just crazy as hell and shit like that. And it's basically talking about how artists, how you criticize MCs and shit like that. How just because you're famous and all that shit does not mean that you can't still rip the mic and stuff like that. That's what I got from that. Nice way to start off the album and shit like that. Very good way. You don't hear a lot of people talk about that song, and that could have been a dope single though. But it is what it is. Get a Hold is the next song. That's a very calm song right there. I love that beat and shit like that. That's actually a Q-Tip solo song, and he did his thing on that. The third verse on that album actually got a hip hop quarter of the month from the South, so the Source. So yeah. Track number 3, Motivators. That song was okay and shit like that. That's like mostly Tip and Consequence and shit like that going at it. Track number 4, Jam. Pretty dope song. It's a storytelling song about this cat, he decides to try smoking marijuana and shit like that. And so next thing you know, he just goes out with his friends and he's having a good time and shit. You know what I'm saying? Interesting trivia about the song. At the end of the song, if you really listen closely, you can hear Kool G Rap and Nas song Fast Life playing in the background and shit like that. And ironically, the song's playing in the background now. So yeah. Next song, Crew. To my opinion, the best song off this album. In a way, this song kind of reminds me of. Well, let me say what the song is about first. So the song is about how Q-Tip finds out his best friend and his wife had an affair behind his back, and he's just very venting and shit like that. Very cool song. Q-Tip did the thing on that. It was like a very. One thing I liked about the song, it didn't get too sappy with the song and shit like that, and it kind of reminds me of the Common song "Stolen Moments Part 3" and shit like that and stuff like that, which is, in my opinion, that's got to be like in my top 15 storytelling track. This whole Stolen Moments trilogy and shit. And ironically, Part 3 featured Q-Tip, so go figure. Track number 6, The Pressure. That song was okay, not really one of my faves, but the beat reminded me of something you would hear from the Infamous by Mobb Deep. I would give them that. Then you have Once Again, pretty ill song right there. It's one thing I liked about that song was kind of reminiscent of early Tribe, but with a twist and shit. So I'll give them that. Cause the chorus is like an interpolation of the Check the Rhyme chorus and shit. Then you get to Mind Power. That one was okay too. It's just basically talking about using your head in situations and shit. The Hop, pretty solid song right there. Keeping It Moving. And this is one of the 2 tracks where he kind of addressed the East Coast West Coast beef. And he's just trying to say, just because you got to keep it moving, we unite as a front and shit like that. And it was a response to the song "Cross the Mountain, Put a K on It" by the West Side Connection, cause yeah, cause this is some of the lyrics he said on the song too. How you get West Coast nigga from West Coast hater? How I can never diss a whole coast, my time is too greater. Yeah, we from the East, the land of the rich natives. You also from the West, the land of the innovators. Dope line right there. The only difference of the two is the style of rap. Plus the musical track, this beef shit is so whack. Like, that is a dope line. Probably my favorite line off the whole fucking song. And I like how he gave shouts to like rappers like Mobb Deep, Biz Markie, DJ Quick, Dre, and so on and so on. Track number 11, Baby Fife's Return. That's like a 5 solo track. 5 did this thing off that. The same as Q-Tip was Separate and Together. Pretty cool song. Track number 13, What Really Goes On. Yeah, that is another song where they talk about a variety of subjects, and they also talk more about East Coast West Coast beef and stuff like that. Track number 14, that was a pretty ill song by the way. Track number 14, Wordplay. That song was okay. And track number 15, Stressed Out, featuring Faith Evans. Pretty dope song right there. Yeah. You know, self-explanatory. It's talking about how cats get stressed out, you know, and shit like that. How you gotta keep pushing and shit like that. But it's very interesting too, because on the video version, all 3 Q-Tip, 5, and Consequence, they have like verses and shit. But on the album version, Q-Tip and Consequence, they only have verses on the album. 5 didn't have a verse. And I kind of feel it's like, in my opinion, what happened was, maybe when 5 came, he heard the song, he probably came late. He just like, I'm just gonna record a quick verse just for the video and shit like that. Because artists, they do that shit all the time and shit like that, you know what I'm saying? Prime example is when Ghostface, when he did a video for All That I Got Is You, the album version featured Mary J. Blige. But if you watch the video, Mary J. Blige is not in the video. It's some Woods affiliate singer. I forgot her name and shit like that, but y'all know who I'm talking about. So yeah, I feel like artists, they do that shit all the time, just to maybe record a quick verse just for the video and shit like that, or just label it as like a video mix, you know. And that's all the songs off the album. When I first heard this album, to be real with y'all, I didn't really know what to think of this album. Like, part of me wanted to like it because, you know, it was like a more mature, darker album. But part of me was kind of like, the chemistry between Tip and Phife is what's heavily missing from this album. And that's like, and that's kind of crazy because, um, like I mentioned before, like that's what made the trap album and shit. It's like Havoc and Prodigy and shit like that. You know, you gotta have that chemistry between the inner alliance. That's what I'm trying to say. Like no shots towards Consequence because yeah, he did his thing on certain tracks of the song, but at the same time, it's kind of like the main issue with this album that many longtime trap fans have. Is like Phife wasn't heavily featured on the album and shit like that. So yeah, but I do want to say, listen to it now. I have more of an appreciation towards it and shit like that. Like, this is really the darkest album and shit like that. And the production, like, that's another thing too. If the production and shit like that. Basically, the first three albums is like more melodic, like more jazzy and shit like that. Well, this album, although it did contain a jazz influence, it had more of like an ambient kind of like sound and shit like that. And I like that sound, especially because a lot of my favorite JD productions, he kind of uses that sound and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? So, but at the same time, like it grew on me like over these. Now I came to like appreciate it and shit like that. But at the same time now, I mean, when I was listening to it at first, it kind of like caught me off guard and shit. But yeah, but despite all the issues, it's still a very dope project and shit like that. It's it's not really a classic, but it's a very good album and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like you really hear the anger in Q-Tip's voice and shit. Like he curses a lot in this album, and it's kind of crazy and shit. Cause yeah, they did have a few curses and shit like that back in the previous album, but with this album, it's like he just really went in. Like he had like a lot of shit in his mind though. But yeah, all right. And Consequence, he was nowhere to be found on the Love Movement album. And that's another album I have a lot to say about it too. So stay tuned for that. Peace and shit.